Okay, so we are live, and welcome to the March Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. We have a pretty full agenda today, and I'm going to try and make sure that we stay on schedule and are done before 10:30 this morning. So I'm just going to read through who I see on the call today, just to make sure I have everybody. Andrew Tracy, David Wooden, Jen Hogan, Audrey Bernison, Carrie Ward, Charles Welge, Ed Brennan, Ed Davidson, Ethan Warren, Jack Selich, Jack Mance, John Mitchell, Lindsay Brett, Lisa Wallen, someone from the Albany Planning Department, Rima Shamea, Valerie Dean, Dennis Gaffney, and Linda Vonderheide. Did I miss anybody? Great. Okay. So before we jump into the first agenda item, I just want to give a CDTC update on our public health policies. The one change that we are excited about is that we're no longer requiring visitors to make appointments, and vaccinated individuals are not required to wear masks in the office anymore. So with that, I'm actually going to ask Jack Vance from the Adirondack Glens Falls Transportation Council to introduce himself and just give us an update on some of the bike ped planning activities that have been going on in our MPO neighbor area to the north of us.
Hi, everybody, and thanks, Jen, for inviting me to the meeting. I do see quite a few familiar names in the sidebar, so some of you already know me, but I'm the Senior Transportation Planner up at the Albany Glens Falls, or Adirondack Glens Falls Transportation Council, which is the MPO in Glens Falls. We're a very small MPO. I'm really the only staff, so but we do quite a bit of bike ped planning up here, and as the two MPOs do kind of have a boundary, it's good to have an opportunity like this to, for me to hear what you guys are doing, and if I have any updates that are kind of on that border, I think it'll be a good idea to collaborate. If you're interested in some of the things that we're doing, we actually did just complete a regional bicycle plan last year for the Warren, Washington, and Northern Saratoga County region. That's on our website, agftc.org, and I'd be happy to give a longer update at a different meeting. But it does show all of our priority bicycle routes as well as all of our priority bicycle projects. So any project that any of our project sponsors, any municipalities in our region have proposed in the last 5 to 7 years are all shown on that map and in the plan. And there's a little cut sheet to explain all of the information about it. It's a really a good way to keep track of what's going on. So if you are bordering Washington or Northern Saratoga County, I do encourage you to take a look at that. We also do a lot of small bicycle pedestrian kind of connecting studies. I'd be happy to talk about any of those as they come up. And we do a lot of ADA transition plan inventories on behalf of our small villages and the more rural places that can't really afford to do the inventory themselves. So we have a GIS-based inventory system that we collaborate with consultants, or we do it ourselves to go out and collect those sidewalk, crosswalk, curb ramp inventories. We try to squeeze that into existing projects so that we're not going out and doing it just as a matter of course. But it's a good way to kind of get all of that background information and just have it in case they ever want it and do want to do an ADA transition plan. I see that is on your agenda as well. So that's something we're pretty excited about. And we also just this past year had our first CDPHP cycle bike share. We have 4 racks now in Glens Falls and Lake George. So we're very excited about that. I'm sure we'll be hearing some updates about that as well. So yeah, that's a really quick nutshell of what we're doing. And I'm really glad to be here to hear about what you guys are up to.
Thanks, Jack. Our committee has asked, to get some occasional updates from AGFTC. So I'm really glad you were able to make it today, and we can continue to share information and update each other. That would be great. Thanks. Okay, so we also have a featured presentation. Lisa Wallen from MJ Engineering is going to present on the Scotia Downtown Connections Plan. So Lisa, I'm going to make you a co-host. And then you should be able to share your screen.
All right, let's see. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. And how about that? Can you see the presentation?
I can see your presentation. It's not in full screen, but I can see it. Yep, now I can. Great.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right, great. Andrew, if you wanted to kick us off.
Sure. Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, Jen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Tracy. I'm the project manager on the Scotia Downtown Connections linkage study, which Lisa is going to discuss in a moment here. Just a little bit of background. The purpose of this study is to plan out concepts for mobility improvements for all modes of travel on Mohawk Avenue in Village of Scotia. This study was proposed by the village, and they wanted to specifically focus on improving the pedestrian, bicycle, and transit experience on Mohawk Ave, which is essentially Main Street, Scotia, New York Route 5. So this project is funded under CDTC's Community and Transportation Linkage Program. You can find more information on the linkage program on our website. CDTC hired MJ Engineering to carry out the study. So I'll turn things over now to Lisa Wallen, the project manager for the MJ team, to provide an update on all the work they've done and on the draft concept plan they've prepared. So take it away, Lisa.
Great, thanks. Thanks for the invitation today. So again, we'll just quickly run through this presentation. In the interest of time, I may skim over some things, so feel free to ask questions at the end or contact me after. Again, project sponsors, Village of Scotia and CDTC, of course. MJ Engineering's the consultant on this study. Lisa Wallen here, and I'm a senior transportation engineer with MJ and our project manager. And we have a study advisory committee for this study comprised of members from Village of Scotia, the Scotia Business Improvement District, CDTA, New York State DOT, Schenectady County, and also a few residents. Our project study area is up here on the map in red, and you can see it spans Mohawk Ave between, let me pull up some points of interest here, between the Western Gateway Bridge coming from Schenectady and further west all the way out towards North Reynolds Street. And a few points of interest out just after the bridge, if you're familiar with Glen Sanders and Jumping Jacks at that big intersection. Collins Park is located there. Scotia Cinema and Village Hall is central to the study limits. And then out in the west, Gabriel's Market, if you've ever been there, it's a great little store. Project objectives here, we're looking to improve pedestrian and bicycle and transit experience within the village's central business district, preserve the quick and efficient movement of commuters and freight through the village, enhance the safety, accessibility, and enjoyment really of all users for the area. And finally, improve connections to Mohawk Ave corridor from different points throughout the village. At the end of the day, the goal is to develop a plan endorsed by the village to pursue that they can use to pursue funding opportunities and actually implement some of the recommendations. The consultant scope of work for this is, I think, pretty typical for a linkage study with CDTC. We are here, we're about to kick off with public workshop number 2 and share a concept plan, a draft concept plan with the public. That's going to be at the end of March. There have been a few previous studies completed with recommendations really focused on this study area. So we've been sure to be familiar with these studies and implement some of the recommendations or look into and roll those into what we're showing here today. If you're interested in these studies, they are linked on our study website. It's scotiaconnections.com. We've looked at a whole host of different existing conditions for the corridor to make sure we understand what's happening out there. Not going to go through all these, but I am going to touch on just a couple. The road itself, like Andrew mentioned, is New York State Route 5. It is a truck route. There's 5 signalized intersections and 2 stop controlled. And part of this study, we kind of broke it up into different sections. They have a very different look and feel. Section 1 is right in that business district. There's 2 lanes with parking on each side. It's kind of narrow. That's really where the draw is for people coming in to shop and that sort of thing. Skipping over to section 3, coming off the Western Gateway Bridge, is very open. It's 2 lanes in each direction alongside Collins Park there. And then section 2 is really just a transition in between the 2. In terms of traffic data, there's a lot of numbers on here, but really all I wanted to share with you, you can see Mohawk Ave in red, just under 24,000 vehicles a day coming in and out of Schenectady. A lot of turning movements associated with Ballston Ave, New York Route 50, and Sacandaga Road is New York 147. And then leaving the project on the west end, we're all the way down to just under 5,000 vehicles per day. So a lot of turning movements happening here. In terms of pedestrian accommodations, it's a beautiful walk through the village. There are sidewalks 4 to 5 foot wide, curb ramps and crosswalks at all the crossing locations at the intersections. Pedestrian signal equipment to some extent does exist at all those signalized intersections. And the village has done a great job installing some benches, trash receptacles, and some decorative pedestrian lighting. In terms of accessibility, we did conduct a ADA compliance audit throughout the village. We measured the sidewalk and curb ramp slopes. There's quite a few that really aren't meeting standards right now. We looked at the pedestrian path width in terms of there's some street trees. And you can see that nice decorative brick strip that's been installed. It's not stamped concrete, it's actual brick, and it has kind of sunk down, settled over time. So between that and those street tree pits, the flat compliant walkway kind of necks down to almost 2 feet in many locations. And then in terms of bike routes and bike accommodations, there's 2 of those bike share hubs at the village's public parking lot, which is central within the study limits. And Route 5 through our study limits is signed as New York Bicycle Route 5. And on a larger scale, here's a map of the village as a whole with some bike routes highlighted on here. Our study area is that red shape down at the bottom. And you can see the green line is that bike route 5 all the way through Scotia headed out towards Amsterdam. CDTA's bike plan highlights, kind of gives an idea of a planned future Scotia loop path, which is shown in blue here. And you can see that cuts right through our project limits. At our first public workshop, we presented the existing conditions and tried to get an idea of how people felt about walking and biking through the corridor. And there were several live polls, and you can see some of them here. In a nutshell, several people walk daily through the corridor and don't necessarily have an issue with it, just that the condition has degraded over time. But bikes, on the other hand, they either say they don't bike, and many said they don't bike because it's unsafe. So that was interesting. And with many complete streets projects, we always need to look at parking and what's happening there. Over several days, different times, we looked at, observed how many people are parking and what times a day. And moral of the story, it's a pretty low parking utilization rate, definitely below 50%. The higher rates around 35 are near Village Hall, and there's a Mohawk tap room. There's a restaurant that people frequent there. We did consider historic observations due to effects of the pandemic from both the village and the public. And one of our live polls kind of cemented that idea in. People said there's sufficient parking within the project area. So at the end of that, that first public workshop, we reviewed complete streets definitions, gave examples with photos, explained that there is a modal hierarchy to implementing complete streets features. You know, just because everything looks great doesn't mean everything's going to fit within a specific corridor. And also explained that many of those features have maintenance implications for the village moving forward. And then at the end, we asked the public what they felt was needed. We had some strong feedback for curb extensions, some bike infrastructure, either bike lanes or shared use lanes. And we also talked a little bit about bus pullouts. There are quite a few CDTA bus stops throughout this corridor. So we took that feedback, we began to develop the draft concept plan through last fall, and we coordinated with the village, state DOT, and CDTA for some early concepts before distributing a draft plan to the study advisory committee at the end of the year. A few main points of feedback we got back from some of our coordination. DOT did not recommend putting mid-block crosswalks in that 4-lane section, the section 3, if you remember back to the early map, and talked about considering PSAP recommended safety measures. We have asked for clarification on that because there are safety measures recommended for crosswalks in a 4-lane section. And they also made sure to let us know that there's planned future development for some of the vacant properties. So we should add that into the plan. CDTA, we asked them about the bus turnouts, and their opinion is that they do not prefer bus turnouts. And that's because once a bus exits the travel lane, there is sometimes a delay associated with getting back into the flow of traffic. So they do not prefer those. And then we also had some great conversations with the study advisory committee, mainly based around curbed median versus business access, termini of multi-use paths, actual locations for mid-block crossings, and gateway features. So moving on to the actual plan, we are recommending study-wide, or corridor-wide, I should say, to reconstruct those sidewalks and to provide an ADA compliant pathway for pedestrians, maybe moving that decorative brick strip out to be a decorative hardscape buffer along the curb line instead of within the walking pathway. I'm going to talk about the intersection of Schonowee in a later slide, but we are recommending that bike traffic from the Western Gateway Bridge, which does have a multi-use path on it, be directed out to Glen Avenue. It's a residential street, much quieter than Mohawk Ave, no truck traffic, and we're recommending shared use lanes on Glen Ave. And then corridor wide, looking at relocating lampposts and assessing the need for additional features. Some of the business owners asked for that. And of course, a new wearing course and striping throughout. And the corridor plan does include a raised center median. There is a key plan at the bottom here. You can see there's going to be a red circle highlighting where specifically we're talking about. But here's a photo of that 4-lane section coming off the Western Gateway Bridge out of Schenectady. And here's a concept plan of what that median could look like. You can see we did have to add that left turn entrance into the businesses, that particularly that one business there does not have another means of access. So we added a turn lane for them. And here's what a section might look like. You can see the center median, the multi-use path on the right, the sidewalks on the left. We are recommending 2 mid-block crossings. The first is within the 100 block where most of the pedestrian traffic is occurring. The second at Collins Street is just across from, or just at Collins Park. And the reason for that is there is a lot of documented foot traffic across the street here. And a lot of it is kids running back and forth from the park to Dunkin' Donuts and to businesses on the other side. So we felt that this was warranted. And Mary Moore Land Art Studio put together this nice rendering of the 100 block crossing, and you could just see those curb extensions really tighten up that crossing for pedestrians. The corridor plan also includes a few amenities and gateway improvements. When you're implementing curb extensions, it gives you a lot of space for nice things like street trees, lights, planters, bike racks, benches, that sort of thing. And we did get a good comment from the business district that they wanted a gateway treatment as you enter that business district, which is just adjacent to the Route 50 intersection. So you can see down here on this plan, those two curb extensions, it's not for a crosswalk, but for a gateway feature. And Merit Land Art Studio came up with this nice rendering that got some excellent feedback. Now back at the Schonowee and Glen Ave intersection, we have some different improvements here. The multi-use path will be extended to connect to various multi-use paths within Collins Park. This slip ramp from Western Gateway Bridge onto Schonowee, we're proposing to modify that curb radius a little bit. It was tough for delivery trucks to make that turn. And the island itself, it's really just a flat asphalt surface, kind of ugly right now. So we're proposing to put a matching hardscape buffer, some landscaping, and bikes coming to and from Schenectady would be routed through this island to eventually connect to Glen Avenue. And here's a rendering of what that could look like, that nice island there. And it gives an opportunity for the village to put signage for the village itself, or that purple one on the side, most recently we talked about could be a banner for Collins Park itself. At Ballston Avenue, Route 50, improvements here were really based on truck turning movements, significant truck turning movements at this intersection. So let's see, up at number 1 here, we're actually proposing to pull this curb line back because there's a lot of accidents reported. Trucks are just kind of mowing over the signs here very frequently. So this is a worst case scenario that we're showing, and when the project goes to design, coordination with this property owner, with DOT will be required to actually figure out what the final answer is here. And this striped curb extension here, the idea is there is an existing CDTA bus stop. A bus could pull off into this striped area, and then when loading operations are complete, they could pull straight forward because there is a travel lane in front of them. And then this is where that gateway treatment would be proposed as you're entering the business district. At Sacandaga Road, Route 147, a couple items we wanted to share. We do have a lengthy curb extension here because there's no parking permitted anyways. But in order to have that be a hard curb extension, we do, to accommodate truck turning movements, we would need to modify those stop bar locations. And looking ahead, like I mentioned, our second public workshop is at the end of March on the 23rd in the evening. And the goal of that is to present these concepts and take public comments on them. After we address those comments, we'll button up our final concept report and present to the village. Hoping to do that in mid-April. So with that wraps it up. Thank you. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'll leave this up for just a minute. Otherwise, there's a lot of great information on our website.
Thanks, Lisa. We have a couple of questions in the chat. Do you have a couple minutes? Could you answer them?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can read them. Okay. So one question was, what are the maintenance jurisdictional boundaries between Scotia and DOT?
Once we get into the village, I believe DOT, actually the village is responsible for snow removal in the street and on the sidewalks. And they would take on all of this project, I believe, construction wise.
Thanks. And then for the Route 50 and other corners, did you consider a slightly raised truck apron to manage passenger car speeds while accommodating heavy vehicles?
We do. Hi, Jim. We do have text about that in the plan, in the written plan. Yes. great idea.
Thanks. And does this project include adding bike lanes to the Westgate Bridge?
We looked at bike lanes on Mohawk Ave to Western Gateway Bridge. Once the bike lanes enter the village and it really necks down, it was tough to get them to a safe place. They eventually would need to, because of the parking and how much it necks down, we would have to eventually direct them out to Glen Avenue anyway. And it was kind of unclear how that would cleanly be accomplished. So that's why we ended up going with routing them to Glen Ave right from that first intersection.
Okay. And I think that kind of answers, there's a follow-up question about how bike traffic is handled from Schenectady to Glen Avenue. And with 50% parking utilization, was parking on only one side considered?
We did consider parking on one side. We had some pushback from the businesses there. So we did not pursue further. Bike traffic from Schenectady, it's not just a sidewalk, it's actually a 10-foot multi-use path on the bridge itself. So that's why we're making that connection around that triangular median to connect with that bike path.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll shift back to the next agenda items. So our next, can you see my screen just to make sure? Yes, okay. So our next agenda item is the CDPHP cycle, and it should say Scoot updates, not Scott. I apologize, Lindsay. But Lindsay Brett from CDTA is here today, and she's going to give us a brief update on CDPHP cycle and their other new micromobility services.
Thanks, Jen. Good morning, everybody. I also have our operations manager, Steve Bratzbis, here with me. So we just kind of wanted to give everybody a quick update on what we've got planned for this coming season. We are ready to go. We've got our eyes set on the first week or second week of April for the 6th season launch for CDPHP cycle. We're going to start the season this year with over 400 bikes throughout our system, including our newest service area of Warren County. We plan to add more bikes up into Warren County this year. We'd like to get them up around 30 to 35 bikes to start off the season. Probably build another 1 or 2 racks in their riding area. So we've been working with our partners at GGFT and Warren County, this off season to kind of get those plans in place, and we're excited to do that. So Steve and his team will be out probably towards the end of this month, as weather allows, reinstalling the racks in Warren County and the couple of racks down here in the capital region where we have to rebuild those racks. So another new feature for this season is we're going to have new technology on the bikes. The back end, the controller, that black box that's on the back of the bike where the keypad is, that will be no longer. We're not going to have, you're not going to have to punch in manually your account number and PIN number. It now is going to run off a QR code system. So the controller on the bike will have a QR code on it. You'll open up the Cycle app on your smartphone, and in your account for Cycle, there'll be a button that says scan to unlock. You'll scan the QR code on the bike you want to rent, and you'll hear the lock pop out just like normal, and away you go on your ride. So we're right now in the process of producing some graphics for social media that kind of explain the new controller, the look of it, how it works, just to give people kind of a heads up and a step-by-step process on how those new controllers work. But it's something that we're super excited about. It's better, smarter, faster technology, better experience for our users, we think. So Steve and his team are busy installing those new controllers on the bikes now so that we're hopefully ready to go for the start of the season. We are working on getting a batch of e-bikes into the cycle fleet, probably mid to late summer. We've got an order of them coming to us from our operations vendor. So we're excited about that. Once we have a better timeline on when they will arrive to us due to supply chain issues, as everyone knows about, as well as shipping issues, we're hoping to have them here by the summer. So as we get more detailed information on their arrival, we'll certainly be sending out messaging and social media teases and that kind of thing to let people know that e-bikes are soon to come. Finally, we just wanted to give an update on the electric scooters. Scoop. We are hoping to have them fully functional, ready for rentals this summer. We're going to get the bikes out on the road first, let Steve and his team make sure all the bikes are where they need to be and kind of get our arms around, a bigger fleet this year and make sure the new controllers, everybody's good with those. And then we're hoping to have the scooters out probably by early summer. Albany, Troy, Schenectady, as we did the demos last year, but we're also in conversations with the city of Saratoga to maybe have scooters up there this summer as well. So we're excited about that. We were really, really happy with how the public demos went with the scooters last year. We were able to let hundreds of people ride the scooters maybe for the first time or just try our scooters out for the first time. But more importantly to us, it was a chance to educate people on how our system will be built, how to lock the scooters to racks, which is one of the requirements of our system. So we're hoping to be ready to go, like I said, early summer with those. But again, social media messaging, posts, system messages through our to our users will keep everybody up to speed on our timeline. But as of right now, first or second week in April, CDPHP cycle will be back and ready to go. We will be releasing our early bird promotion, which is a $20 discount on a seasonal membership for this year. We'll be sending that out later this week. So we're excited for another successful season to build on our 70,000 rides from last season.
Thank you, Lindsay. We have a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
John Mitchell asked if Mechanicville was getting bikes this season.
Not this season that we have planned right now. Once we launched the Flex service up there last September, the CDPHP cycle question popped up pretty quickly. So we have had some very high-level initial conversations with them, but nothing concrete planned for this season as of right now. Not saying that it couldn't happen the latter part of the season, but it's not on our radar for the launch.
Okay. Ed Davidson asked if there's a process to request a network extension or expansion or additional racks, and what criteria is used to evaluate a request.
So we get asked the expansion question all the time, and people are always giving us suggestions on where they think racks should go, where they think good areas for bikes would be. We listen to every request. We have conversations with individual people, organizations, municipalities all the time. It's a combination of where it's safe for people to ride bikes, where people want to and need bikes as modes of transportation, and what makes sense connectivity wise with the rest of the cycle network. So kind of all of those pieces are the things that Steve and I look at when these ideas and requests come in. But we're always open to ideas. We're always looking for new expansion areas, and we also value and welcome any input too. And as these new locations make more sense and kind of help us build a better network, we're always open to ideas.
Thanks. Would you, if someone asked for your email and phone, would you be able to send it to them in the chat?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a question, how are you contending with the Albany County helmet law for e-bikes and scooters?
So we've been following that pretty closely, especially when we were doing our public demos for the electric scooters last year. We do know that Albany County passed the law that helmets are required. All of our messaging, even before that law was passed, all of our messaging promotes riding safely, including wearing helmets. So, folks by law now in Albany County are required to follow that helmet law. So we heavily encourage it. We don't supply helmets along with our bike share system, but we do many community events throughout the entire season in the various municipalities where we'll give away helmets just to kind of increase that safety awareness and really promote safe bicycle riding.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. And then one more question in the chat. Is there a process for people who don't have smartphones
There is.
to use the bikes?
Yeah, there is. And we knew that was going to be not necessarily an issue, but we knew that was going to be a question and a concern for some folks. We do have a process using an RFID card. So if someone does not have a smartphone, we would work individually with that person to get them a registered RFID card that they will now be responsible for. So not only renting the bike, but they're now also responsible to maintain possession of that RFID card, which would be their unlocking mechanism for a bike. So we have that process in place. We'll also use RFID cards with some of our cycle access clients, some of our hotel programs that we have for the bikes. So that's something that goes along with the new controllers as well.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yep. All right. And I don't have this on the agenda, but I wanted to make sure before we go any further that I introduced, we have another new CDTC employee, Stephen Maples. Stephen, if you want to wave in your little Zoom box. Stephen is our new public involvement specialist. So he'll be working a lot on public outreach and involvement and other planning initiatives. So if you see Stephen, if you hear from Stephen, he is a new employee at CDTC. So I hope you all welcome him.
Good to meet you all.
Okay, so moving on, I'm going to skip that one thing so that we'll go back to it. Is an update on the ADA transition plans. Carrie?
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Super. So I just have a verbal update on the program today. We are expecting to receive an initial Saratoga Springs draft document the final week of March. We thought we were done with data collection, but we realized we forgot something. So they're back out this month to collect that final thing. And then the team will be able to put together the draft for our internal review. In around that time, the interns that are newly hired will go back out in the city of Albany to continue doing the data collection there. We are planning on continuing the program. I have an RFP ready to go for consultant assistance. We need to renew that. And then we will be soliciting for municipalities to participate. I don't have an exact timeline on that, but I expect it to be before the end of this calendar year. And that's it.
Thanks. Okay, so continuing on with the agenda, just an update on the TIP update. As we discussed last meeting, there have been some delays to begin programming because we don't have funding, we don't have program funding information yet. We still do not have that information, and the next planning committee is scheduled for April 6th. As things change, we'll update our website and our committees as we meet. The 2022-2023 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, was adopted by the Policy Board on March 3rd. So we briefly talked about the draft UPWP at the last advisory committee meeting. Some key tasks that are new for this next period are a Town of Hoosick Asset Management Plan, a Brunswick-Hoosick Road Corridor Study, the Sand Creek Road Complete Street Feasibility Study, the City of Schenectady, Albany and Crane Streets Linkage Study, developing health impact assessments, developing, or I should say, support for resiliency and security planning, and kind of identifying vulnerable assets and laying out next steps for how to lay out a plan for resiliency and adaptation in the capital region. Capital Coexist will continue. It has evolved a bit, and we'll announce the program details for the next round early next month. And then, of course, renaming bike ped planning to active transportation planning. So for capital coexist, we've reserved $20,000 for community-led short-term traffic safety infrastructure demonstration projects. So these are our, the pilots or the demos that we've seen happen around the region. We're looking for those kinds of projects that are related to linkage study recommendations or other plans that have recommendations for changes in maybe pavement allocation or the way the street functions. And then we've also reserved $5,000 to support bike skill safety training and maintenance workshops with LCI trainers as part of the Bike to Work Day Challenge. And we've reserved $15,000 for bicycle and pedestrian safety events led by local law enforcement. And again, we aim to release program information by April 1st when our new program period begins. So Rima's going to give us an update on Bike to Work and Ditch the Car, as well as our walk and roll task.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Jen. So we are developing the Bike to Work Challenge for this year, and we're going to hold it on June 1st, which is going to be a Wednesday, in the hopes of getting all of those sort of part-time work from home people into the office at some point that week, hopefully on that Wednesday, to participate in the Bike to Work Challenge and get them biking into work. So we're just, in the early stages of putting together the promotional materials and the program for that. And it's gonna be pretty simple program this year. Just sort of getting back into the swing of things and establishing sort of a baseline for this year, post-pandemic, or sort of during pandemic, depending on what our current reality is. Who knows? So we're just in the current planning stages for that. And one of the things we're going to be doing new this year, or sort of reintroducing that we haven't done in a while, is working on organizing bike safety trainings, hopefully to lead up to the Bike to Work Challenge. Hopefully going to organize at least one in each of the counties, each of the 4 counties. And so look out for, we're going to be putting out a invitation for groups to host the trainings in the next couple of weeks. So look out for that. And then Ditch the Car. So the idea is that the Ditch the Car campaign, some of you might be familiar with that from last year, so that it was a multimodal campaign that we launched last year. And this year we're going to be piggybacking. So it's going to launch right off of Bike to Work and go through the summer. And it's going to be multimodal, so all non-single occupancy vehicle modes, and we'll have a badge incentives and raffle prizes like we did last year to get people excited about thinking about other ways that they can be getting around and doing things in their transportation lives other than driving. And then for what we had been calling our Bike to School Challenge, we're retooling that program and we're calling it a walk and roll program. And we're also working to do safety, building that program out to do more, try to do some safety training, piggybacking on that program as well. So the idea is that we'll do try to do a walk and roll program with schools in the region on June 1st as well, and leading up to that, hopefully do some safety trainings with schools also.
Thanks, Rima.
Yep.
Okay. So we continue to implement New Visions 2050, our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We have the ongoing virtual learning series, and this committee will be helping to advise on the scope of the update, which we hope to lay out a scope for the next Metropolitan Transportation Plan update by the end of this program year, so by March 2023. And my hope is that our advisory committee can help inform that process and how active transportation is included in the plan, which projects are, should the region be thinking about, talking about as a priority, programs, et cetera. So we continue to work on that. And now, Sandy, are you on?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I can.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for participating in the working group. This is one of our more active advisory committees here at CDTC, and we appreciate all the time and energy folks put into this. I do want to say, though, that it came to my attention that members of this advisory committee, remembering that you are participants, you're not appointed, you do not represent CDTC in any capacity, have been signing letters to municipalities using CDTC's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee as a signatory. You do not represent CDTC, and we can't have that happening. There's no appointments to this committee. You do not represent CDTC policy. If I see a letter brought to my attention again with that signatory on it, we will have to rethink the participation and the approach to this advisory committee. So I hate to be the Debbie Downer of the day, but it's important that anything that is official CDTC policy be brought to us at staff level, and our policy board is the one who would be the signatory on any letter to a municipality, particularly an elected official. Again, it's just an inappropriate representation of your role in this committee. You are participants. So, if you have any specific questions about that, please let me know. But as I said, if I see it and it happens again, we are going to have to rethink this committee. So sorry about that, but hopefully that was a one-time error, and we can all move forward now that we're all on the same page. And again, if you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Sandy. So like Sandy said, we want to continue to have this forum to exchange ideas and discuss issues, and to be able to inform the planning process and bring really important issues up to our planning committee and policy board. So I appreciate everyone's understanding and continued participation. So our next agenda item is, as usual, an update of CDTC's planning and projects. I won't go through all of these. These are included as a handout in the agenda and will also be in the notes. As you can see, CDTC has a lot of ongoing consultant led and also technical assistance program projects and plans. A lot of these are due to kind of wrap up at the end of this program year, and then we'll see some new projects also, as we talked about with the adopted UPWP. But if you have any questions about ongoing projects, please reach out. There are websites for some of the bigger projects, and their web links are in the status sheet, so you'll be able to find them. So yeah. And with that, our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 12th at 9 a.m. I think we'll have at least one more virtual meeting, and then May is Bike Month, and we usually try to meet in person at a recently completed project to kind of highlight the progress in developing a bicycle and pedestrian network in the capital region. So if you have a recently completed project in your community and you're interested in hosting the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, please let me know and we can start planning on that. Typically what we like to do is have the project implementer or someone representing the project implementer and if possible, the consultant or engineer who worked on the design of the project, and then other organizations or agencies that may have been involved. You don't need to have all of those folks, but as many of those folks as possible that are able to answer questions for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, lead kind of a short walk or bike on the facility and talk about how the project came to be, how it was implemented, even, talking about costs, barriers, and just kind of lessons learned from the project so we can all learn and see something that's really been done. We can interact with it. So please let me know if you have a project idea or would like to host the advisory committee. We've tried to spread it out around the region and go to different locations. So we're not limited to any specific city or town. So we have some time. Is there any updates from agencies, organizations, or other ongoing bike ped planning or project related updates?
This is Martin.
Jen, I got a question. John Gillivan, Village of Colony, Town of Colony, bike ped advocate. So the new format with the coexist falls under UPWP program. You sent me an email, but I just have a clarifying question. So the deadline for submitting for a grant under that new coexist reformation is April the 1st?
No, we haven't announced the new program yet.
Okay.
So we don't have guidelines or any sort of deadlines available just yet.
Okay. All right. Next question is the 15K for a bike safety day. Those are the type of events that I've held in the village here. And I participated at other locations, Schenectady and Albany. The 15K is for 5 projects for 15K, or a project is limited to 15K?
The project maximum request is 5,000. What we've always had as the max request.
Okay.
It doesn't, we've had projects completed for much less than that. So
right.
We've reserved that much of our capital coexist budget specifically for those types of safety projects. And we're asking that law enforcement agencies be the lead on applying and planning those.
Okay, so and I think that's really, I commend you guys on doing that, because I think that police departments in some areas are active, but in other areas are not. So I think that is a good initiative. As long as we have a committee made up of a safety officer from the Town of Colony PD, and they're actively involved planning as well as the day of the event, does that qualify, or do they have to do all the leading? Because they're not. I tell you right now, police are so understaffed before and during COVID. If I tell them they have to take the lead on everything, they're not going to do it. Period.
So we haven't decided on the program guidelines yet, but I know it is our yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just, I'd be glad to give some input. I'd be glad to give you a safety officer's name at the Town of Colony. But any event, that I wanted to just highlight that. Okay, great. And that's the other thing is on the Sand Creek Complete Streets feasibility study did get approved at the March 3rd meeting for the UPWP grant. So how soon can they start the wheels in motion on getting an application out for an engineering firm to take a look at and start that study or
Well,
feasibility study.
Right. So CDTC has a process for, notifying the project sponsor for contracting with them. And then CDTC takes the lead on working with the town or village to develop a scope and put out a request for expressions of interest. So, again, the program year starts April 1. So assuming that we begin contracting in April, it would probably be a few months before an REI goes out and the project is kicked off.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks for that timing. Thank you,
Sure.
Jen.
Sure. And Martin, I think you were giving an update too.
And mute here. The CDRPC is going to be repeating our spring webinar series again, 2022. The webinars will take place on Wednesdays and Fridays from May 4th to June 3rd, a series of 10 webinars. We'll have a wide variety of topics and sessions that are aimed primarily at planning and zoning board members in municipalities to be able to maintain their credits, keep their skills sharp, and discuss emerging issues like marijuana regulation, for example. So that series will be available. You can find information about it as we begin to populate our sessions on our website, cdrpc.org. We are still looking for speakers and sessions, and I'm open to ideas. If there are emerging topics in your municipality where it would be beneficial to have an expert come and speak about a planning or zoning issue, let me know, and we'll be able to track down if we can have a session on that. So we're always looking for sessions on transportation, resiliency, stormwater, ethics and law, emerging trends in those spheres. So that's I'll keep my update brief and just check out our website, cdrpc.org, for information about our spring 2022 planning and zoning workshop series.
Thanks, Martin. And as you guys develop a schedule, we'll make sure to share that with the committee so they have an opportunity to register.
Great.
Ed, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, a quick question. I guess you're still developing those guidelines, but with respect to having police departments as lead, would you also consider like police related, like PALs being leads?
That's a good question. We haven't decided, but that's
Yeah.
a good thing for us to take into consideration.
All right, thanks.
Yep. Any other updates? Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone. Again, our next meeting is April 12th. And if anything, comes up before then and you need to reach out, please do so. But I will see you next month. Bye, everyone.